Knife crime, gun violence. These aren't just statistics, are they? They're sons and daughters, brothers and sisters. Lives cut short on London streets, in Birmingham parks, across Manchester estates. It's a crisis right at our doorstep, truly devastating. Today, we're not just talking about the problem. We're actually going to explore how you, as a Christian and as a church, can be part of the solution. This is how UK Christians and churches can help fight knife and gun violence.
That's right, Manasseh. And you know, the statistics really paint a stark picture. Latest ONS data shows a truly troubling rise in knife crime across England and Wales. We're talking about thousands of offences, and it's not just numbers, it's the ripple effect, the fear, the shattered trust in communities. London, in particular, has seen its share of youth violence, but it's crucial to remember this isn't isolated. Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool, Nottingham, they're all grappling with very similar, heartbreaking challenges.
Absolutely. And when you look at who's being affected, it's often the most vulnerable. That age group, 15 to 24-year-olds, is disproportionately at risk. These are young lives with so much potential, futures that are just extinguished, dreams that never get a chance to blossom. The human cost, Emmanuel, is immeasurable. Families shattered, communities traumatized, and an entire generation's potential lost to violence.
It's a heavy burden, for sure. And it really brings us to our central question for today. What can Christians and churches do? More importantly, what should we be doing? We have these incredible spiritual resources, our physical spaces, committed volunteers, and let's not forget, a 2,000-year history of caring for the vulnerable. So how do we deploy all of this right now to save lives and transform communities?
Precisely. This isn't just a discussion. This episode is a blueprint for action. Whether you're a church leader, a concerned Christian, or simply someone who wants to make a tangible difference, our goal is that you'll walk away with concrete steps you can take starting this week. Because we believe firmly that the church has a vital role to play in tackling this crisis. Let's start with the spiritual resources at our disposal, Emmanuel. What do we bring to the table?
Well, Manasseh, our greatest asset, honestly, is the gospel message itself. It's not just a religious text. It's a powerful tool for violence prevention, especially through identity transformation. You see, young people who get drawn into gangs are often searching for identity, for belonging, for significance. They want to feel important, powerful, like they matter.
Yeah, they're looking for that family feeling, that sense of worth, and sadly, they find it in destructive places.
Exactly. And the church offers an identity rooted in being created in God's image. That's a profound truth, isn't it? It says you are inherently valuable, uniquely made, with a divine purpose. Christians can mentor these youth, showing them how to find their worth in Christ, not in street credibility, not in the number of followers, or the violence they can inflict.
That's a powerful shift. So practically speaking, what's an action step churches can take here?
I'd say start identity-focused Bible studies in your youth groups. Focus on questions like, who am I? Why do I matter? What's my purpose? Really dig into those core existential questions that these young people are grappling with. Show them that true belonging and significance come from a relationship with God.
I love that. Identity is so foundational. And then there's hope, right? Hope as an antidote to despair. You hear these stories, or read about them, and there's often this nothing-to-lose mentality that drives so much youth violence. When you feel like your future is bleak, like society has written you off, what's left to hold on to?
It's devastatingly true. That sense of hopelessness is a breeding ground for destructive choices. But Christians offer a hope that transcends circumstances. It's not just wishful thinking, it's a living hope, rooted in a God who redeems, who gives second chances. Biblical stories of redemption, think about people like Manasseh himself, or even Paul, they resonate so deeply with at-risk youth. They see someone who's made terrible mistakes, yet found a new path.
And the action step for that, I imagine, is around sharing those stories?
Exactly. Churches should create testimony-sharing events. Bring in reformed individuals, people who have turned their lives around, who can openly share their transformation stories. Hearing someone say, I was there, I made those choices, but God showed me another way. That's incredibly powerful. It humanizes hope.
That's brilliant. And then, a really difficult one, but so essential, the power of forgiveness to break cycles. Gang violence, it just operates on these endless revenge cycles. An eye for an eye mentality. Someone wrongs you, you retaliate, then they retaliate even harder, and it just escalates.
It's a vicious circle, and Christian teaching on forgiveness is literally life-saving in this context. It's about breaking that chain. It's not about condoning the act, but choosing to release the bitterness, the desire for revenge, which ultimately consumes you. How do we help young people make that incredibly difficult choice of forgiveness over retaliation? It's not easy, but it's the only way to stop the bloodshed.
It takes immense courage and strength to choose forgiveness. So an action step for churches here.
Develop forgiveness workshops for young people caught in conflict. Use those powerful biblical examples. Joseph forgiving his brothers, Jesus on the cross, Stephen forgiving his persecutors. These aren't just ancient stories, they're blueprints for how to navigate profound hurt and choose a path of peace, even in the face of injustice.
These spiritual resources, identity, hope, forgiveness, they're truly foundational. So when we talk about practical implementation, how can a church actually weave these into their day-to-day ministry? What are some concrete ways?
Well, firstly, preachers need to preach sermons specifically addressing violence, identity, and hope. Don't shy away from these tough topics. Then, create discipleship programs specifically targeting at-risk youth. These aren't just Sunday school lessons, they're tailored, relevant, life-affirming. Also, train church members in biblical counseling for trauma. So many people in these communities are carrying deep wounds, and the church can be a safe space for healing.
And I'd add to that, consider offering alpha courses or Christianity Explored, but adapt them for urban youth contexts. Make them relatable. Use language and examples that speak directly to their experiences. Sometimes the standard approach might not quite land, so we need to be creative and intentional.
Absolutely. It's about meeting people where they are. Now moving on, Manasseh. Every action we take, every spiritual resource we deploy, it has to be built on a foundation. And for us, that foundation is prayer. Strategic prayer initiatives churches can implement are non-negotiable.
Definitely. Prayer isn't just a nice to have, it's the engine room. One powerful way to engage is through prayer walking. Organize regular prayer walks through high-crime areas in your community. You're not just praying, you're physically present. Pray specifically for youth, for families, for schools, for community safety. And honestly, make your presence known. Wear church t-shirts, engage with residents. It's an action step that's both spiritual and visible. Start a monthly prayer walk team. Commit to 6 months minimum. See what God does.
That visibility is so important, it shows you care beyond just words. Another powerful tool is 24/7 prayer rooms. Set up dedicated prayer spaces in your church, specifically focusing on local violence prevention. Recruit church members for prayer slots throughout the week, even through the night if possible. Display maps of your area with specific prayer points marked out. It centralizes and intensifies prayer focus. As an action step, launch a 40-day prayer campaign against violence in your area. Make it a sustained spiritual offensive.
A 40-day campaign. That's serious commitment. And then, corporate prayer gatherings. Host regular prayer meetings specifically for community transformation. Invite other local churches for united prayer. There's power in unity, right? And critically, include families affected by violence to share their prayer needs. It makes the prayer so much more personal and impactful. My action step here would be organize quarterly citywide prayer gatherings focused on youth and violence prevention. Imagine the spiritual momentum.
Absolutely, that's how we see systemic change. And related to that, adopting streets and estates. Imagine if each small group or ministry team in your church adopted a specific street or estate in your vicinity. They commit to regular prayer for the residents, for businesses, for schools in that area. Over time, they start to build relationships through that prayer-motivated presence. The action step: map your surrounding area and assign prayer responsibility to different church groups. It gives ownership and a targeted approach.
That's fantastic. From prayer, we move to pastoral care. Because when violence strikes, communities are wounded, families are devastated. Churches have a crucial role in ministering to the wounded. Let's talk about supporting victims and families first. What's immediate crisis response look like?
When violence occurs, churches can mobilize quickly, providing practical support to grieving families. Meals, childcare, transport to services is huge. But also, offering prayer and spiritual comfort, but doing so without being intrusive, respecting their space and their pain. An action step would be to create a rapid response team trained in trauma support and crisis ministry. These are people who know what to do, what to say, and how to serve in those critical first hours and days.
That's so practical and needed. And beyond the immediate, there's long-term grief support. Grief isn't a short-term thing. Establishing ongoing counseling and support groups, connecting families to professional mental health services, hosting memorial services that truly honor victims and promote healing. This is where the church's sustained presence makes a difference. My action step for this would be train lay counselors in grief and trauma-informed care through accredited Christian counseling programs. Equip your people to walk alongside others through deep valleys.
That's essential, Manasseh. And here's a difficult one, often overlooked: supporting the perpetrators' families. Don't forget that the families of those who commit violence also suffer immensely. They navigate guilt, shame, community rejection, and a profound sense of loss. The church needs to provide non-judgmental support and pastoral care to them too.
An action step. Create confidential support groups for families of incarcerated youth. They need a safe space to process without judgment. That's such a vital point, Emmanuel. Compassion has to extend to everyone affected. And then, mental health ministry. We know that communities affected by violence often experience anxiety, depression, PTSD, trauma. The church can help reduce the stigma around mental health. Partner with Christian mental health professionals. Host mental health awareness workshops. Connect members to resources like Mind UK or other Christian counseling services. This is holistic care.
Agreed, it's about caring for the whole person. Now, let's talk about prison and rehabilitation ministry. How can Christians engage with young offenders? This is a crucial area. One way is supporting prison chaplaincy and visitation. Chaplains do incredible work, but they're often stretched. Churches can volunteer for prison visiting programs through Prison Fellowship UK. Write letters, maintain contact with incarcerated youth. Show them they're not forgotten.
That's such an impactful ministry, simply showing up and caring. For an action step here, partner with Prison Fellowship UK. Attend their volunteer training. Equip yourselves to be effective in that environment. And then, rehabilitation programs. Supporting faith-based initiatives inside prisons. Offering Bible studies, life skills workshops, mentoring. Preparing young offenders for release and reintegration. What can churches do specifically?
Your church can adopt a young offender institution. Provide ongoing ministry and resources. It's a long-term commitment, but it yields incredible fruit. Then there's the critical period after release. The first 72 hours, the first 6 months, these are make or break times. Churches can provide housing, employment support, mentorship, and community. We need to address that shocking 70% recidivism rate. A comprehensive support network is key.
An action step. Create a reintegration support network with accommodation, job placement, and accountability partners for those coming out. That statistic is just heartbreaking. And it highlights how crucial that reintegration is. We also need to think about breaking the pipeline, right? Working with families before youth enter the criminal justice system. Intervention programs for first-time offenders. Restorative justice circles facilitated by trained church members. Catching them before they get too deep.
Precisely. Prevention is always better than cure. An action step for churches here. Train church members in restorative justice practices and offer to facilitate circles in partnership with youth offending teams. This can provide a powerful, healing alternative to traditional punitive measures, focusing on repairing harm and rebuilding relationships.
Emmanuel, these are incredibly practical and spirit-led actions. Moving on, let's talk about practical actions churches can take using their physical assets. So often, we see church buildings standing empty for much of the week. Open your building. How can we maximize our physical space as a resource?
That's a fantastic point, Manasseh. Our church buildings are, in many ways, dormant assets. We need to see them not just as places of worship on Sunday, but as community hubs throughout the week. For example, open your building as a safe space or a sanctuary for young people, especially after school hours. Imagine a place where they can come, feel safe, away from potential street conflict, maybe have a meal, get some homework help.
Yeah, a place to just be without looking over their shoulder. That's huge for young people in at-risk areas. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy, right? Just a warm, welcoming environment.
Exactly, just a few rooms, supervised by caring volunteers. Provide board games, a place for quiet study, even just somewhere to charge their phone. This directly combats the idleness that can sometimes lead to trouble. Another idea is to host youth clubs or after-school programs that are specifically designed with crime prevention in mind. Teach practical skills, offer sports, art, music, anything that gives young people positive outlets for their energy and creativity.
Giving them something constructive to do, a sense of purpose. I mean, so many of these young people are just craving an opportunity to prove themselves in a positive way. These programs can provide that. What about for younger kids, too?
Absolutely. Holiday clubs, for example, during school breaks when kids are often left unsupervised, offer engaging and structured activities. This not only keeps them safe but also provides positive role models and a sense of community. Churches could partner with local schools or youth workers to identify those most in need of such programs.
That's brilliant. It's preventative at a really early age. And what about for older youth? Maybe those who are already on the cusp of making wrong choices, or those trying to get out of trouble. Could the building be used for something more vocational?
Definitely. Churches can offer vocational training workshops. Think about basic carpentry, coding, catering skills, hair and beauty. Things that are practical and can lead to employment. You have church members with incredible skills, leverage them. Turn a Sunday school room into a workshop on a Tuesday afternoon. This gives young people tangible skills and a pathway to legitimate income, reducing the temptation of illicit activities.
That's amazing. It's providing hope for a future. Real, tangible hope. And also, think about using your space for community dialogues. Host town halls. Bring together community leaders, police, youth workers, affected families, and even reformed individuals. Create a forum for open, honest conversations about youth violence and potential solutions. The church building becomes a neutral ground for reconciliation and strategic planning.
Exactly, a place for difficult but necessary conversations. And to support all these initiatives, use your space for volunteer training. You'll need people trained in youth work, mentoring, trauma support, conflict resolution. Your church building can be the hub for equipping your congregation to serve effectively in these challenging areas. Make it a center for positive change.
Emmanuel, this has been such an eye-opening and truly empowering conversation. We've talked about the spiritual arsenal, identity, hope, forgiveness, and how churches can implement these through powerful preaching, discipleship, and tailored programs. We've emphasized prayer as the absolute foundation. Prayer walks, 24/7 prayer, corporate gatherings, and adopting streets.
And we've delved into pastoral care, supporting victims, families, and even perpetrators' families alongside critical mental health ministry. Then, engaging with young offenders through prison ministry, rehabilitation, and vital reintegration support. And finally, the practical power of opening our church buildings, turning them into safe spaces, skill-building hubs, and community forums. Every single point here is actionable.
It truly is. So to our listeners, whether you're a church leader, a concerned Christian, or someone who just wants to make a difference, take these steps. Start with one action, or gather your leadership and plan a comprehensive approach. The crisis of knife and gun violence is urgent, but the church's potential to be part of the solution is even greater. Let's not just talk about it. Let's be the hands and feet of Christ in our communities. Let's make a real difference.
That's it, Manasseh. The time for action is now. Let's pray, let's serve, and let's transform our communities, one life at a time. Thank you for joining us on how UK Christians and churches can help fight knife and gun violence. We pray this has equipped and encouraged you. Go forth and be the change. We will not stop until we cast out the forces of darkness and the principalities behind all this violence and fill our streets with the love of Christ. So stay tuned for our next episode. London, Birmingham, Manchester, and the streets of the United Kingdom need Christ.